June 6, 1944, a date etched in history. But what did it truly take to pull off the largest amphibious invasion the world has ever seen? This is the story of D-Day, an operation so audacious, so complex, it almost defies belief. By 1944, much of Europe was under the iron grip of Nazi Germany. The Allied powers, led by the United States, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union, knew that to liberate the continent, they had to breach Hitler's Atlantic Wall, a formidable network of coastal defenses stretching from Norway to Spain. The plan was codenamed Operation Overlord, and its first most critical phase was the D-Day landings. The planning was immense, a logistical puzzle of staggering proportions. Millions of soldiers, sailors, and airmen were secretly assembled in southern England. Thousands of ships, from massive battleships to tiny landing craft, were gathered. Entire mock armies, complete with inflatable tanks and fake radio chatter, were created under Operation Fortitude to deceive the Germans, making them believe the main invasion would strike at Pas-de-Calais, the narrowest point of the English Channel. The real target was 150 miles to the west, a 50-mile stretch of coastline in Normandy, France. This coastline was divided into 5 sectors. The Americans were assigned to Utah and Omaha beaches. The British were to land at Gold and Sword beaches, and the Canadians at Juno. But before any soldier's boot touched the sand, another battle had to be won. In the dark, pre-dawn hours of June 6th, more than 13,000 paratroopers from the American 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions, along with British and Canadian airborne forces, dropped behind enemy lines. Their mission was chaos: to capture key bridges, destroy German communication lines, and secure vital causeways to prevent enemy reinforcements from reaching the beaches. These men were scattered, often landing far from their drop zones, fighting in small, isolated groups against a confused but deadly enemy. As dawn broke, the main event began. A naval armada of nearly 7,000 vessels approached the Normandy coast. The sea was rough, the weather far from ideal. In fact, the invasion had already been postponed by 24 hours due to a storm. On the ships, men checked their gear, said their prayers, and braced themselves. Many were seasick, cold, and terrified. They were about to step into hell. The naval bombardment was thunderous. Shells from Allied warships rained down on German positions, trying to soften up the defenses. Overhead, thousands of bombers dropped their payloads. But the Atlantic Wall was strong. Concrete bunkers, machine gun nests, and fields of barbed wire and mines awaited the invaders. The experience varied drastically from beach to beach. At Utah Beach, the landings went relatively smoothly. Strong currents had pushed the landing craft to a less defended area, and the paratroopers inland had successfully disrupted the German response. Casualties were lighter than expected, and the troops quickly moved inland. But at Omaha Beach, it was a different story. It was a slaughterhouse. The pre-invasion bombardment had largely missed its targets. The German 352nd Infantry Division, a battle-hardened unit the Allies didn't know was there, was waiting. As the ramps of the landing craft dropped, men were cut down by a storm of machine gun and artillery fire before they could even reach the water. The beach became a kill zone, littered with the dead and wounded. For hours, the situation was desperate. Small groups of soldiers, led by determined officers and NCOs, huddled behind the limited cover of the seawall. Against all odds, they began to slowly, painfully fight their way up the bluffs, destroying one German position at a time. It was an act of sheer grit and courage that turned the tide at Omaha. At the British and Canadian beaches, Gold, Juno, and Sword, the fighting was also intense. At Juno, the Canadians faced strong resistance and heavy casualties in the initial waves, but fought their way inland further than any other Allied unit on D-Day. At Gold and Sword, British forces overcame fortified German positions, battling through coastal towns and pushing towards their objectives, including the crucial city of Caen. By the end of the day on June 6th, the Allies had done the impossible. They had secured a foothold in Normandy. Over 156,000 troops had landed. But the cost was staggering. More than 10,000 Allied soldiers were killed, wounded, or missing in action. On Omaha Beach alone, there were over 2,400 casualties. Each number represents a life, a family, a future cut short in the fight for freedom. D-Day was not the end of the war, but it was the beginning of the end. The beachhead they established allowed millions more Allied troops and tons of supplies to pour into France. This marked the start of the brutal Battle of Normandy, a grueling 2.5-month campaign that would eventually lead to the liberation of Paris and the push towards Germany. The success of D-Day was a testament to meticulous planning, technological innovation, and incredible deception. But above all, it was a story of human courage. It was the young men in the landing craft, the paratroopers dropping into darkness, the pilots in the sky, and the sailors on the rough seas. They faced unimaginable fear and fought with a bravery that changed the course of history. Today, the beaches of Normandy are peaceful. The German bunkers are silent monuments. Cemeteries with rows of white crosses and stars of David stand as a solemn reminder of the price of liberty. When we remember D-Day, we honor the generation that sacrificed everything to pull the world back from the brink of tyranny. Their legacy is the freedom we often take for granted. It's a legacy that must never be forgotten. Thank you for watching. If you found this story of courage and sacrifice meaningful, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the most pivotal moments in history. We'll see you in the next one.